Welcome back to Dead Reckoning TV. Today on our Above the Paygrade segment, we have a very special guest whom I'm very excited to welcome to Dead Reckoning. He is Wesley J. Smith. He is a senior fellow for the Discovery Institute. He is an author of many, many books. He's a writer, a blogger, op-ed editorialist, and all-around defender of the human race. Wesley J. Smith, welcome to Dead Reckoning.
Well, thanks for having me.
So I'm having you on the show because I watched a really great documentary that you've just come out with an accompanying e-book called The War on Humans. Hyperbole, Wesley Smith? Is there really a war on humans?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. And The War on Humans is about how what I think is an important movement in the world, the environmental movement, has been overtaken by an anti-humanism that is both destructive in its advocacy and in its proposals. How often these days do we hear about human beings as the cancer on the earth or the AIDS virus on the earth? For example, Sir David Attenborough, who's a very well-known environmentalist, about as mainstream as you get, he's done all those wonderful documentaries on wildlife. He has called human beings a plague on the earth. And he has actually extolled China's one-child policy because he believes in reducing the numbers of people in the world. But that one-child policy involves forced abortion, which he finds a little regrettable, I guess, and female infanticide. So there is a real problem here with a misanthropy that I don't think is healthy.
Now, you are a fierce defender and advocate. In fact, you blog right now, as I understand it, on National Review Online. The name of your blog is Human Exceptionalism. Now, this is your attempt, I guess, to counter the war on humans. Are human beings really exceptional, Wesley? Are we not just another animal?
No, I don't think we are just another animal. Human exceptionalism is a term that I use that tries to deal with both aspects of what I consider to be human nature. We hear a lot about the sanctity of human life and the unique dignity of human life, and of course that's an important part, but that doesn't get the whole picture. We are also the only moral agents in the known universe. We are the only species that understands right from wrong, that has a sense of ought, O-U-G-H-T. That means we have duties. We have duties to each other. We have duties to our posterity. Think about here in the United States, the founding fathers were always talking about their posterity and wanting to create a free and prosperous nation for their posterity, which is us. We have duties to animals, to treat them humanely and properly, not cause gratuitous suffering. We do have duties to the environment to be responsible as we exploit resources and build prosperity and human thriving to treat the earth properly. That's what I mean by human exceptionalism. And the distinctions between us and other animals, or us and animals I prefer because the term is a moral term as well as a biological term, is that, yes, let's say people will say, well, Wesley, the elephant has an exceptional trunk. Yes, it does. Or the hawk has exceptional eyesight. That's absolutely true. But those are biological distinctions. They're not moral differences. It's like saying, well, we're unique because we're perhaps the only bipedal mammal. Well, bipedalism doesn't mean anything. That's just a biological approach. And of course, birds are bipedal too. But what we have is so different. It's as different as the Beaver's Dam from Hoover Dam. And I think that that is really important to accept because that means we can focus on our obligations. I remember I once went to Gonzaga Law School and I gave a speech on this idea of human exceptionalism in the context of the animal rights movement. And when we talk about animal rights, we have to distinguish that from animal welfare. Animal welfare has to do with the duties I described. Animal rights creates what I consider to be anti-human moral equivalence or equality between animals and people. And of course, the animal rights contingent came out to boo and hiss. And in the Q&A part, one of the students got up and said, "You're being hubristic, you're being arrogant. That means you think we can do whatever we want to animals." Even though at least 9 times during the speech I'd said that wasn't true. So I asked him a question. I said, "Sir, if being human in and of itself is not what gives us the obligation to treat animals humanely, tell me what does." And he went, and kind of like if you see the old Honeymooners episodes, Jackie Gleason, hamina, hamina, hamina. He had no answer because it is precisely because we are human. If it isn't because we're human that we have the duty not to pollute, let's say, Puget Sound in Washington, what does? It's because we're human. That's what I mean by human exceptionalism. The elephant herd does not have the obligation to treat the minor ecological grove and community, if you will, of the trees in Africa in any special way. We do. That's
wow. Wow. Quite an apologetic there for human exceptionalism. You have this great line, and I almost hesitate to spoil it in the movie where you say, if human beings are nothing more than animals, we will act like it.
Yeah, the line is, if all we are is another animal in the forest, that's just how we'll act.
Yeah.
And that's to contrast what the anti-humanists are trying to say. Their advocacy meme, if you will, is to say, well, if we just realize we're the same as the other animals in the forest, that there's really no difference between humans and the rest of nature. If we grant rights to nature, which is beginning to happen, literally laws granting rights to nature, then we'll be gentler on the land and we'll treat nature in a better way. And I think the contrary is true. If that's how we define ourselves, we'll act like all the other animals do, which is grab what we want when we want it, and that kind of returns us to tooth and claw of the natural world.
Wow. One of the things I appreciate so much about your writing and your advocacy, and even in this documentary, War on Humans, is that you are not just knee-jerk reacting to the excesses of the environmental movement. You have a lot of praise for the accomplishments of the environmental movement over the last 100 years or so. Seems to me that you're a little bit more sophisticated than the typical drill baby drill, but your fear is that this movement that has accomplished such good, maybe you can talk a little bit about what they have accomplished, but it's being taken over by people who are radically anti-human. Is that the sense of it?
Yeah. Yeah, you think about, I grew up in the 50s, I'm aging myself in LA. And the smog in LA in those days was so thick you could eat it with a fork. And I remember as a kid in the summer, particularly, you'd go out and play, and you'd come home and your lungs would hurt, and you'd be coughing the rest of the night. And good environmental practices cleaned up Los Angeles air, not completely, but certainly made a huge difference. I remember the stories of rivers catching fire, and we've cleaned up that dirty water. We preserved wild places. We have engaged in conservation activities. We protected endangered species. Look at Yellowstone National Park, which was starting, you might even say the environmental movement began with that, the establishment of Yellowstone. It's one of my favorite places on Earth, and it's important that we keep Yellowstone in the sense of wildness and beauty that it currently has. But New Zealand has just declared a river to be a legal person entitled to rights. Well, that's nuts. We protected Yellowstone without declaring Old Faithful to be a person, Old Faithful geyser. And let's take a look at this problem of what I'm talking about in terms of nature rights. Let me read you what nature rights is. I'm going to use the actual language so your viewers will see that this is not something that is something we shouldn't care about. Nature, where life is reproduced and exists, has the right to exist, persist, maintain, and regenerate its vital cycles. That's a right to life for nature. And the idea behind nature rights is that nature's rights are co-equal and concurrent with those of humans. And when humans want to exploit nature to fulfill a human need, the rights of nature must be given equal consideration. And this is in the laws, the laws of where these laws are being embodied. 2 countries have created the rights of nature, including Bolivia and Ecuador. You might say, well, Wesley, those are just 2 small South American countries. What difference does it make? 30 cities in the United States have adopted nature rights laws, including Santa Monica. I mean, I grew up in LA, as I mentioned. I know Santa Monica like the back of my hand. There's no nature left in Santa Monica. So why would they want to have rights of nature in Santa Monica? It's a declaration of ideology that humans have no greater value, no greater dignity, and certainly no right to exploit the natural world than any other species. Now you might say, okay, well, some call it the People's Republic of Santa Monica, so what? Well, Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the United Nations, supports nature rights. It's been proposed for inclusion in the Global Warming Treaty. Now, if you had nature rights as an international issue, imagine you're a struggling nation in sub-Saharan Africa with a lot of destitution but rich in resources. The idea would be to prevent you from really exploiting those resources because of the rights of nature. What would be the best thing we could do for Africa? It seems to me to have an electrical grid throughout the continent that would bring water processing, hospitals, all kinds of things we in the well-off West take for granted, but which many who in the now, unfortunately, anti-human environmental movements say we can't do that because it'll destroy the earth. Well, that's not compassion. Well, and that's why, by the way, they want to transfer trillions of dollars from the developed world to the developing or undeveloped world to give them a chance to have at least some life. But that's creating a culture of dependency. That's destructive too. So this idea of looking down on humans or creating a natural world equivalent to humans is anti-human in its outcomes. It will destroy prosperity. It will reduce human thriving. It will prevent us from having the kind of lives that we would hope to have, not only here in the West, but where we've already created that kind of prosperity, but elsewhere.
Yes, as most disasters are, poor are hardest hit, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're the ones whose rights will be infringed the first.
Yes, that's a great point. I don't remember who I was reading, but somebody said, here in America, of course, we have coal mines and coal-fired power plants and electrical grids and steel mills and all of this, and we apparently think that the Africans can have a little solar panel.
Yeah, and their dung fires for the poorest of the poor. That's okay too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to South Africa. I haven't been anywhere else in the continent, and South Africa has a lot of prosperity, but you also see some really bone-crunching poverty, and it breaks your heart. So if we're going to we can have a powerful and productive environmental movement in these destitute places, help people develop their resources in a responsible manner and bring prosperity to those places without depriving them of what we in the West insist upon for ourselves. And which is a result of proper environmental practices that were pro-human, not only in their advocacy and in terms of human exceptionalism, arguing our duties, but also in their outcomes.
Wow. Wesley J. Smith, where can our viewers go to see your documentary and obtain the ebook, War on Humans?
Well, thanks. It's waronhumans.com, waronhumans.com. The ebook, which the documentary is based upon, is available there are links there in Kindle, Nook, and Apple formats. The documentary is free on YouTube, and that's linked as well. And the ebook's only $1.99. We're just trying to get this information out, not because we're opposed to environmentalism, but because we support it.
Yeah, and that is such a crucial distinction to make, which is why, I had asked you earlier, it's almost like you're saying that the environmental movement's been hijacked here by this really anti-human ideology, and it's almost just a call to the environmental movement itself that,
better stated would be it's in danger of being hijacked, that it hasn't been totally, but it is in danger. A lot of very mainstream people say this cancer on the earth nonsense. And what used to be the fringe, the deep ecology, the Gaia theory with Earth as a living entity, has literally chewed from the outside into the center of the movement. And it really is up to dedicated environmentalists to say, no, we're not going to go in this direction.
Wow. That is a fantastic thing. Wesley, we're so appreciative here at Dead Reckoning of your work. I encourage our viewers to check out all of your writing on nationalreview.com, the Human Exceptionalism blog. Check out War on Humans. This is an important and crucial issue. Again, if we are not exceptional, then nobody has responsibility for nature. Thanks so much for joining us. We are delighted to have you, Wesley.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
It was a lot of fun. I
Great.
appreciate it.